Lena had always tried her best to balance being a stepmother with being a friend to her stepson, Alex, though she often wondered if she was doing enough, if her presence in his life was more helpful or just another reminder of changes he hadn't asked for. That Saturday afternoon felt unusually quiet, the kind of quiet that made every small sound echo, from the soft hum of the refrigerator to the distant chirping of birds outside. And Lena felt a strange mix of peace and unease as she moved around the living room, straightening cushions, folding blankets, and letting her mind wander to thoughts she rarely admitted aloud, about her own past, mistakes she had made in relationships, and moments when she had wished someone had guided her through challenges rather than leaving her to figure them out alone. And she caught herself thinking about Alex, a boy who had always been polite, sometimes withdrawn, and yet full of unspoken emotions that Lena was determined to notice, to acknowledge, to honor, because she knew that growing up wasn't just about learning facts or following rules. It was also about having someone who cared enough to see what was going on inside your mind when you felt invisible. And as she passed by his closed bedroom door, she noticed a faint sound, the kind of scratchy, quiet noise that made her stop mid-step. Her heart suddenly alert, her curiosity piqued, and she wondered if he was listening to music, writing, or perhaps dealing with some frustration he hadn't shared yet, and she debated whether to knock or simply wait, her hand hovering in the air, hesitating because she wanted to respect his privacy while also feeling that maternal instinct pulling her in, that instinct telling her that sometimes being there, even quietly, could make a world of difference. Finally, she decided to gently knock and push the door open just a little, enough to peek inside without startling him. And what she saw made her pause because Alex was sitting cross-legged on the floor surrounded by scattered papers, a notebook in his lap, a pen moving hesitantly across the page, crumpled sketches and writings littering the area around him, and his brow was furrowed in concentration, lips pressed together, eyes intense, and Lena could feel the weight of the moment, the tension in the air that spoke of struggles he hadn't told her about, battles with his own thoughts and doubts, dreams he wasn't sure were achievable, fears he couldn't quite put into words, and she realized this was one of those rare glimpses into the private corners of a person's life that you weren't meant to see, yet somehow seeing it made her heart ache with both concern and the desire to help. "Alex," she said softly, her voice careful, gentle, inviting, and he jumped slightly, pen falling from his hand, the papers fluttering like startled birds, and he looked up at her with wide eyes, a mixture of embarrassment, frustration, and something she couldn't immediately name, something tender and raw that made her step further in, sitting on the edge of the bed, her presence calm but attentive. "Is everything okay?" she asked, and he hesitated, twisting the pen in his fingers, looking down again then back at her. "Yeah, just trying to figure something out," he muttered, his voice small, almost drowned by the quiet of the room, and Lena nodded slowly, sensing that there was more beneath the surface, something he wasn't ready to say, something heavy and delicate at the same time, a secret challenge that weighed on him, and her mind raced as she considered how to approach it without pushing him, how to be supportive without overstepping, how to show that she was there, present, someone who would listen without judgment, someone who could offer guidance but also space. And she remembered her own childhood, the moments she had felt isolated, misunderstood, invisible, and the longing she had felt for someone to notice, to care, to quietly guide her through the confusing maze of growing up, of making mistakes, of learning who she was and who she wanted to become. And she realized that Alex might be feeling that same weight, the kind of weight that could make even the simplest task feel monumental, the kind of struggle that left a person sitting in silence, wrestling with thoughts that were too complex to share, too fragile to expose. And she felt a surge of empathy, a wave of protectiveness, mixed with admiration for his quiet determination, and she decided that words alone wouldn't help as much as presence, so she remained where she was, keeping her voice soft, her tone warm, her eyes gentle, simply observing, giving him permission to exist in his own space while silently offering support, a lifeline he might reach for when ready. And in that quiet room, surrounded by crumpled pages and scattered pencils, a small shift began, a subtle bridge forming between them, built on trust, unspoken understanding, and the gentle acknowledgement that life's challenges were easier when shared, even in moments when the world seemed indifferent. And Lena felt a quiet hope, a tender anticipation that when he was ready, he would allow her to help, and together they could face whatever was troubling him, transforming this ordinary afternoon into the beginning of something meaningful, a connection that might redefine their relationship, not just as stepmother and stepson, but as two people who could depend on each other in times of doubt and struggle, and she knew that this moment, small and fragile, held the potential to grow into something lasting, something that could teach both of them the value of patience, empathy, and the quiet power of being truly seen, truly understood, and truly cared for. And with that thought, she smiled softly, leaned back slightly, and waited, ready to step closer when he was ready, while savoring the rare, delicate beauty of this shared silence, this unspoken bond forming between them, the kind of bond that could turn ordinary afternoons into profound lessons about trust, love, and the courage to face one's fears. And even as Alex fidgeted with his pen, crumpled another page, sighed deeply, and muttered words that didn't quite make sense to himself yet, Lena felt certain that this was the beginning of a journey that neither of them fully understood yet, but one that promised growth, understanding, and the slow, tender development of a relationship that could touch the heart in ways both surprising and comforting. And she resolved to remain patient, to remain attentive, to remain present, knowing that sometimes the most important guidance was simply offering someone the space to struggle, the space to be vulnerable, and the reassurance that they weren't alone. And in that quiet, sunlit room, with papers scattered like fallen leaves and a boy wrestling with thoughts bigger than himself, Lena knew that helping Alex through this challenge was not just about solving a problem, it was about nurturing a connection, a trust, a gentle love that could grow quietly but profoundly over time. And she felt her own heart open a little more, ready to face whatever came next with patience, understanding, and the unwavering belief that sometimes, the right way to help someone was to simply be there, to watch, to listen, and to offer a guiding hand when the moment was right. And as the sunlight shifted across the floorboards, glinting on the edges of crumpled papers, she felt a quiet certainty that this afternoon, this delicate moment of shared vulnerability, marked the start of something significant, something neither of them would forget, a gentle turning point in their lives that would quietly ripple forward, shaping their relationship in ways that were both subtle and powerful. And she leaned slightly forward, ready to speak again if he needed, ready to offer her presence as a steady anchor, ready to help him navigate whatever lay ahead. And in the fragile pause of the room, the faint scratching of pencil on paper, the sighs, and the quiet heartbeat of two people beginning to understand each other, the story of their connection began to unfold, slow but inevitable, tender but strong. And Lena knew with an almost instinctive certainty that this moment, seemingly ordinary, held within it the promise of growth, understanding, and the quiet magic of being truly seen by someone who cared. Later that evening, the house felt quieter in a different way, the soft hum of the lights mingling with the occasional rustle of leaves outside, and Lena carried a small tray with 2 steaming cups of tea into the living room, knowing that Alex had been tense all afternoon, her heart pulled toward him not just by concern but by a deep sense of empathy, the kind that comes from understanding how it feels to wrestle with fears alone. And she found him sitting on the sofa, hunched slightly, his shoulders tight, fingers drumming absent-mindedly on the edge of his notebook, eyes distant, staring at nothing yet seemingly noticing everything around him. And she set the tray down gently, letting the warmth of the tea mingle with the soft glow of the room, hoping it would offer comfort without words, hoping it would give him space to open up if he wanted to. And after a pause, she sat beside him, careful not to crowd him, careful to give him the room to breathe while also signaling that she was there, fully present, fully attentive, because she had learned that sometimes presence alone could be the strongest kind of support, the kind that says without words, "You are not alone." And Alex shifted slightly, glancing at her with a flicker of hesitation, the kind of hesitation that betrays both fear and longing. And Lena waited, her hand resting lightly near his on the sofa, not touching yet, just close enough to offer reassurance if he wanted it. And finally he spoke, his voice low, hesitant, carrying a vulnerability that made her heart ache. "I'm scared," he admitted, the words barely escaping, but laden with so much weight that the room seemed to pause around them. And Lena's heart tightened, not with fear, but with compassion, because she knew that these were the moments that mattered, the quiet, fragile confessions that could open the door to understanding, trust, and connection. And she looked at him gently, her eyes soft, her voice warm but steady. "You don't have to face this alone," she said, and she saw the tension in his body ease just slightly, the way shoulders drop when someone finally feels seen. And Alex's eyes met hers, a mixture of relief, embarrassment, and something tender he didn't fully understand yet, the kind of emotional vulnerability that was rare and precious. And he sighed, running a hand through his hair, a nervous gesture that betrayed both fear and anticipation. "I don't know if I can do this," he whispered, and Lena nodded, understanding completely, because she too had felt that same fear. The uncertainty of whether one could rise to the challenge, the doubt that creeps in even when determination is strong, and she reached out slowly, placing her hand lightly over his, the touch gentle, not demanding, not intrusive, just a soft anchor in the storm of his thoughts, and Alex looked down at their hands, a faint warmth spreading through him, the kind of warmth that comes from being truly acknowledged, truly supported, and he felt a weight lift slightly, the pressure of trying to appear strong, capable, invincible, dissipating in the presence of someone who cared, someone who wouldn't judge, someone who would help him navigate the uncertainty with patience and understanding. And Lena smiled softly, her own heart stirring, feeling that delicate pull of connection, the silent, unspoken bond that grows when two people share their vulnerabilities, when trust begins to blossom quietly but unmistakably. And she spoke again, her voice a gentle thread weaving through the tension in the room. "Whatever it is, we'll face it together." And the words hung in the air, fragile yet powerful, carrying both reassurance and promise, and Alex felt something shift inside him, a tentative hope, a flicker of courage he hadn't felt before, a sense that maybe, just maybe, he didn't have to struggle alone, that the challenge he had been wrestling with in silence could be approached not with fear, but with guidance, support, and the quiet strength of companionship. And he swallowed hard, emotions swirling, relief, gratitude, nervous excitement, and a strange warmth that made his chest tighten in a way he didn't fully understand, a feeling that was part comfort, part longing, part something deeper that he wasn't ready to name. And Lena noticed the subtle changes in him, the softening of his expression, the slight relaxation of his body, the way his hands rested more easily on his lap, and she knew that this was the start, the delicate first step of a journey that would require patience, understanding, and gentle guidance, because building trust and helping someone navigate their fears wasn't a single moment, it was a series of small, intentional acts that accumulated into profound change. And she felt both responsibility and quiet joy at being part of this process, at being someone who could make a difference simply by being present and caring. And Alex finally lifted his gaze to hers, meeting her eyes with a vulnerability that made the room feel smaller, more intimate, a space carved out just for them. And he spoke again, his voice barely above a whisper. "I don't know how to explain it, but thank you." And Lena felt a warmth spread through her chest, that delicate, fluttering emotion that comes from connecting with someone in a meaningful, heartfelt way. And she squeezed his hand gently, smiling. "You don't have to explain it. Just let me help," she said. And for the first time that day, Alex allowed himself to relax fully, letting go of some of the tension, the fear, and the pressure he had carried. And the silence that followed wasn't empty. It was filled with understanding, with shared emotion, with the unspoken promise of support and trust. And as they sat together, tea cooling between them, the moment felt suspended, fragile yet significant, like the calm before a storm or the gentle pause before a turning point. And Lena felt her thoughts wander slightly, reflecting on how small gestures, soft words, and quiet presence could mean so much, how simply being there, listening, caring, and guiding could transform a person's experience of fear and uncertainty into something manageable, something hopeful, something that could be faced with courage and support. And she also recognized the deeper bond forming between them, subtle but undeniable, a connection built on empathy, shared vulnerability, and the beginnings of mutual understanding that neither of them had anticipated but both felt. And Alex shifted slightly, drawing in a breath, feeling lighter yet still tentative, aware that he had shared something private, something important, and yet comforted by Lena's patience, her steady presence, the warmth of her voice and touch. And he realized that asking for help wasn't weakness, that opening up wasn't failure, and that allowing someone to guide him didn't diminish his own strength. It enhanced it, gave it direction, and created a partnership he hadn't known he needed. And Lena, observing the subtle changes in his expression, posture, and demeanor, felt a quiet pride, not in fixing his problem, but in being part of the process, in offering guidance, comfort, and trust. And she understood that the real reward wasn't just the resolution of his challenge, but the growth of their relationship, the deepening of their connection, the soft, tender emotions that blossomed in moments of vulnerability, shared struggles, and gentle support. And the evening stretched on, filled with small gestures, soft conversation, quiet smiles, and mutual acknowledgement of fears and hopes, a delicate dance of trust and care that neither had expected but both cherished. And as the night deepened, Lena felt a sense of fulfillment, of purpose, of emotional resonance, knowing that her guidance, patience, and empathy had opened a door not just for Alex to feel supported, but for both of them to experience a profound connection, and she knew that this was only the beginning, that more challenges, more moments of doubt, and more opportunities to support and understand each other lay ahead, but that tonight in this quiet living room, over tea and shared words, a foundation had been laid, a bond had begun to form, a story of care, trust, and emotional closeness had started to unfold, and Alex, feeling seen and understood, allowed himself to hope, to trust, and to believe that even the hardest challenges could be faced when someone was willing to walk alongside him, guiding gently, listening patiently, and caring unconditionally. And in that shared space of quiet understanding, Lena and Alex both felt a subtle shift, the kind that changes relationships, hearts, and perspectives, a shift that promised growth, connection, and the tender unfolding of trust and care that would carry them forward in ways both unexpected and profoundly meaningful. And as they sat there together, the night wrapping around the house like a protective blanket, Lena realized that helping Alex was not about doing everything for him, but about creating a safe space where he could express himself, confront his fears, and grow stronger with gentle support. And she felt a warmth in her chest, a quiet, fluttering emotion that was both comforting and exciting, because she knew that this moment, small and intimate, marked the beginning of a journey that would deepen, strengthen, and bring them closer. A journey of trust, understanding, emotional connection, and perhaps, in ways neither could fully name yet, the beginnings of a subtle, tender bond that would continue to grow in the days, weeks, and months to come. Over the next few days, Lena and Alex found themselves spending more time together, not through any planned arrangement but naturally, almost instinctively, as if the previous evening had opened a door that neither of them could ignore, and the house seemed warmer somehow, filled with an unspoken tension that was both comforting and thrilling. A subtle current of connection that flowed beneath their interactions, gentle yet undeniable, and it began with small moments. Lena noticing the way Alex frowned slightly when frustrated, offering a patient smile. Alex catching Lena's eye across the room and feeling a spark of reassurance, a sense that she truly understood him without words. And the project that had initially brought them closer became more than just a task to complete. It became a shared space where laughter mingled with quiet focus, where frustrations were met with gentle guidance, and where the silences between them were not awkward but filled with meaning, the kind of pauses that allow emotions to deepen and trust to solidify. And Lena found herself learning things about Alex that surprised her, the dreams he kept tucked away, the fears he tried to hide behind a brave front, the subtle ways he longed for understanding, approval, and connection. And she realized that helping him wasn't just about providing answers or guidance, it was about creating a safe place for him to explore himself, to express emotions he didn't know how to articulate, and to feel seen in a way that nurtured his confidence and heart. And Alex, for his part, began to feel a freedom he hadn't known before, a release from the weight of carrying everything alone. And the gratitude he felt toward Lena was accompanied by a strange, fluttering warmth he couldn't yet name, a mixture of admiration, comfort, and the quiet thrill of realizing that someone cared so deeply. And their conversations grew longer, stretching into the evenings, touching on small daily events at first, then drifting into deeper reflections, dreams for the future, the little things that mattered most to them, the things that revealed their characters, their vulnerabilities, their strengths. And Lena noticed herself feeling protective, tender, and increasingly drawn to Alex in ways that went beyond the usual stepmother-stepchild bond, while Alex, in turn, began to sense that Lena's presence was not just comforting but magnetic, something he craved and appreciated in moments both ordinary and profound. And the dynamic between them shifted slowly, naturally, filled with an emotional intimacy that neither forced nor rushed, yet it carried the weight and excitement of discovery, of emotional resonance that pulled them together without crossing lines, a mature, subtle attraction born of understanding, care, and the recognition of shared humanity. And one evening, as they sat working together on sketches for a project Alex had nearly abandoned, their hands brushed lightly while passing pencils, and the contact, brief and innocent, sent a shiver through both of them, a silent acknowledgement that the bond forming between them was deeper, richer, more complicated than either had expected, yet neither wanted to name it aloud, for fear of disrupting the delicate balance they were nurturing. And as they leaned over the pages, sharing ideas, laughter breaking through moments of frustration, Alex found himself glancing at Lena more often than necessary, noticing the warmth in her eyes, the gentle smile that encouraged him, the way her presence seemed to calm him, inspire him, and ignite something tender in his heart. And Lena, feeling the subtle changes in his behavior, the way he lingered in conversation, the way his eyes sought hers for reassurance, realized that she too was experiencing an unexpected shift, a stirring in her chest that was a mixture of care, admiration, and a gentle attraction that made her pulse quicken ever so slightly. And they both understood on a silent level that this connection, though new and fragile, was meaningful, rare, and worth protecting, nurturing slowly through shared experiences, quiet support, and unspoken understanding. And over the days, Lena discovered that her role was not just to guide Alex through his immediate challenges, but to help him feel safe to explore his emotions, to express himself fully, and to grow in confidence while knowing he was supported. And Alex realized that trusting Lena, leaning on her in moments of uncertainty, did not make him weak, but strengthened him, giving him courage, perspective, and a sense of belonging he had longed for in subtle ways he hadn't recognized until now. And as they shared more time together, the walls around Alex's emotions began to soften, the mask of stoicism slipping as he allowed moments of laughter, frustration, hope, and reflection to flow naturally. And Lena responded with patience, gentle guidance, encouragement, and warmth, never pushing too hard, never overstepping, always aware that trust and emotional connection needed to grow organically. And their evenings became filled with meaningful exchanges. Discussions about books, stories, small victories, fears, aspirations, and quiet revelations about themselves. And Lena found herself increasingly captivated by Alex's resilience, intelligence, humor, and subtle sensitivity, noticing the flicker of hope in his eyes when he shared his fears, the way his shoulders relaxed when he felt understood, the soft smile that sometimes appeared when he felt comforted. And Alex, in turn, was drawn to Lena's compassion, wisdom, patience, and gentle presence, realizing that she was someone he could confide in, someone who would listen without judgment, someone whose guidance came from care and understanding rather than obligation. And as their bond strengthened, it carried with it an emotional complexity that neither fully expected. Moments of tension that were quickly soothed by shared understanding, moments of admiration that hovered between them like a delicate thread, moments of quiet reflection that deepened their mutual respect and emotional intimacy. And one particular evening, as Lena helped Alex refine a challenging part of his project, he paused, looked up at her with an earnest gaze, and said, softly, "I never thought anyone would care this much about what I do." And Lena's chest tightened slightly, the words carrying an emotional weight that made the room feel smaller, warmer, more intimate, filled with a subtle electric tension that was both thrilling and comforting. And she replied gently, "I always will," knowing that the meaning behind those words was layered, carrying reassurance, support, and the hint of an emotional connection that was growing steadily and beautifully. And Alex's heart fluttered in response, a mix of gratitude, longing, and a quiet, unspoken attraction he wasn't ready to name. And Lena felt a mirrored response, a tender warmth that made her realize that their relationship was evolving into something nuanced, emotional, and deeply human, built on trust, care, shared vulnerabilities, and the unspoken understanding that they were becoming more important to each other than they had expected. And this awareness created an undercurrent of tension that was gentle, restrained, respectful, yet undeniably present, a tension that made each glance, each touch, each shared moment feel charged with significance, yet still safe, nurturing, and emotionally rich. And over the following days, they continued to spend long hours together, working side by side on projects, sharing meals, walking in the park, talking about dreams and fears, exchanging small gestures of kindness and understanding. And each moment strengthened their bond, creating a foundation of trust, intimacy, and emotional closeness that neither rushed nor forced, allowing the relationship to grow organically, tenderly, and beautifully. And Lena often caught herself smiling quietly at Alex's quirks, his insights, the subtle way he expressed himself, while Alex increasingly sought her presence, her guidance, her understanding, recognizing that her support was not just practical but emotional, comforting, and quietly exhilarating. And one evening, as they both sat quietly after finishing a particularly challenging task, Alex glanced at Lena with an intensity that made her heart flutter, a mixture of admiration, respect, gratitude, and something tender he couldn't quite name. And she met his gaze, feeling the same flutter, a recognition of connection, trust, and emotional intimacy that was deep, subtle and profoundly meaningful, and in that shared silence, they both understood that their relationship had shifted, grown, and strengthened into something rare, beautiful and emotionally resonant, a bond built on trust, care, shared vulnerability, and the gentle unspoken beginnings of a deep emotional attachment that promised to continue developing, guiding both of them through challenges, joys, fears, and growth. And as the night wore on, the quiet intimacy of the moment lingered, a soft, enduring warmth that promised more shared experiences, mutual understanding, and the tender unfolding of a connection that was as subtle as it was powerful, leaving both Lena and Alex aware that their journey together had only just begun, and the days to come would continue to shape, strengthen, and deepen this unique, heartfelt bond that was growing between them in ways that were emotional, meaningful, and profoundly impactful. By the time Alex finally completed his project, the atmosphere between him and Lena had shifted in a way that neither of them had anticipated but both felt deeply, a subtle, emotional undercurrent that wove itself into their interactions, making every glance, every shared smile, every quiet word carry a weight that was both thrilling and comforting. And that evening, as the golden light of sunset streamed through the windows, casting long shadows across the floor and bathing the room in warmth, Lena watched Alex with a mix of pride and tenderness, noticing the ease in his posture, the soft brightness in his eyes, the way he moved with a quiet confidence that had been absent before, and she realized that the time they had spent together, the guidance, patience, shared laughter, and quiet support had not only helped him complete the task but had also nurtured a deeper transformation within him, one that was emotional, personal, and profound. And Alex, feeling the completion of his project in his hands, glanced at Lena with an expression that was part gratitude, part relief, part something softer and more complicated, a subtle acknowledgement of the bond that had formed between them, the connection that had grown quietly, steadily, through shared moments of struggle, encouragement, and mutual understanding. And as they spoke softly about the project, reviewing the final details, Alex found himself lingering in conversation, prolonging the moment, enjoying the way Lena listened, the way her eyes softened when she smiled, the warmth in her voice, the gentle, reassuring way she offered advice without criticism. And Lena, noticing his attentiveness, felt a gentle pull in her chest, a tender flutter that made her heart quicken, a recognition that their relationship had evolved into something more emotionally intimate, something subtly charged with feelings neither fully understood yet. And the night stretched on, filled with quiet exchanges, soft laughter, the occasional pause that spoke louder than words, a tension that was gentle, respectful, and profoundly human, a delicate dance of trust, understanding, and emotional closeness that was deepening by the minute. And Lena realized that helping Alex had become more than guidance. It had become a journey of connection, of shared vulnerability, of emotional resonance that carried both of them forward in ways neither had expected. And Alex, feeling seen and supported, began to recognize the value of allowing someone to care, to guide, to share in his fears, dreams, and small victories. And he felt a subtle thrill in realizing that this emotional intimacy was rare, precious, and deeply comforting. And in that awareness, he felt his heart open a little more, letting trust, admiration, and a quiet, gentle longing enter without fear, because Lena's presence was safe, nurturing, and emotionally affirming. And the warmth between them grew as the evening darkened, the room filled with the soft glow of lamps, casting gentle light on the pages of his completed project, on their hands as they occasionally brushed, on their faces as they shared quiet smiles and exchanged words that carried layers of meaning beyond the literal, a shared understanding that this was more than accomplishment. It was a shared experience, a connection, a bond that had been forged in patience, empathy, and genuine care. And Alex, catching Lena's eye across the room, felt an unspoken acknowledgement pass between them, a recognition of how far they had come together, how much trust had grown, and how meaningful their connection had become. And Lena, in turn, felt her own emotions stirring, a mixture of pride, affection, and something tender and subtly thrilling, a recognition that the relationship they shared was unique, profound, and emotionally rich, built on mutual support, understanding, and the gentle unfolding of feelings that were mature, respectful, and deeply human. And as the evening continued, they moved from reviewing the project to simply sitting together, letting the quiet presence of the other fill the room, the silence comfortable, intimate, a space in which emotions could flow without pressure, where gratitude, admiration, trust, and subtle attraction mingled freely but safely. and Lena noticed how Alex relaxed fully in her presence, no longer the tense, burdened boy from earlier days, but someone confident, open and willing to share himself. And Alex noticed Lena's soft attentiveness, her patience, her warm smile, the way she seemed attuned to his emotions without intruding, and he felt a deep sense of appreciation, connection, and something tender that went beyond simple gratitude, a subtle emotional bond that felt like it could last, grow, and strengthen over time. And as they shared stories, small reflections on life, hopes for the future, and quiet, meaningful laughter, the emotional intimacy between them deepened, each moment reinforcing the trust, understanding, and closeness that had developed. And Lena felt a quiet, steady pride, not just in his accomplishment, but in the growth of their relationship, the way he had allowed himself to be vulnerable, to trust, to let someone guide him without fear. And Alex felt a mirrored sense of respect, admiration, and subtle affection, the kind that arises naturally from shared experiences, emotional support, and the slow unfolding of understanding between two people. And as the night deepened, Lena and Alex found themselves lingering in the moment, reluctant to end the evening, reluctant to let go of the quiet warmth that enveloped them, the soft connection that had grown steadily from small gestures, patient guidance, shared struggles, and mutual empathy. And in that lingering presence, they both realized the depth of their bond, subtle, mature, and emotionally rich, a connection that was not rushed, not forced, but naturally evolving, tender, meaningful, and profoundly human. And Lena thought about how guiding someone through a challenge could bring people together, create trust, nurture hearts, and foster subtle, beautiful feelings that neither had anticipated. And Alex reflected on how being seen, supported, and understood could inspire courage, confidence, and an emotional openness he had never experienced before. And together, in that softly lit room, they shared glances, smiles, and quiet words that carried the weight of understanding, the thrill of connection, and the gentle promise of emotional closeness that was both safe and deeply significant. And Lena noticed how his body language softened, how his expressions became more open, how his eyes lingered on hers with warmth and gratitude. And Alex noticed the same subtle attentiveness, care, and gentle warmth in her presence. And in that shared space, both felt a deep, unspoken acknowledgement that their relationship had grown beyond simple guidance, beyond casual connection, into a profound bond that was emotionally resonant, tender, and deeply meaningful. And as they finally stood to leave the living room, Lena brushed a strand of hair from her face, caught Alex's eye, and in that brief, silent moment, felt the flutter of something tender, emotional, and quietly thrilling, a subtle acknowledgement that they had shared something rare, special, and transformative. And Alex, sensing the same, smiled softly, his chest swelling with emotions he could hardly name but deeply felt, a mixture of gratitude, trust, warmth, and the quiet excitement of a connection that was blossoming gently, naturally, and meaningfully. And as they each went to their separate spaces for the night, both carried the lingering warmth of the evening, the knowledge that their bond had deepened, matured, and grown in ways that were safe, respectful, and profoundly moving. And Lena felt a quiet contentment, a fluttering anticipation for the days ahead, knowing that helping Alex had not only guided him through a challenge but had also created a lasting, tender emotional connection. While Alex felt a similar mix of gratitude, respect, and subtle excitement for the unfolding of their relationship, the possibilities of continued shared moments, the comfort of mutual understanding, and the gentle thrill of an emotional bond that promised growth, trust, intimacy, and a journey together filled with warmth, care, and the quiet magic of being truly seen and supported. And as the night settled, both felt a deep sense of fulfillment, a profound understanding of each other, and the gentle, undeniable awareness that this was only the beginning, that their story would continue to unfold, rich with emotion, connection, and the tender promise of more shared moments that were meaningful, heartfelt, and beautifully human.